Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. I am Josh Lander, coming to you a little bit differently today than we normally do things. I'm recording it right now separate from Nate, who already put in a couple of his picks for this video, which we are bringing you some best bets from this Saturday game here in the NBA as the Western Conference playoffs roll on. Nuggets up 2-0. Like I said, some best bets in this video. We're also bringing you player props, recording those separately as well. So make sure to like and subscribe to that page and continue to follow along. We will be back together on Sunday for those Sunday games. So continue to check those out and come back to us here on the YouTube channel. Also want you to head to thelines.com. You can check out all the great written content that we are putting up there on the site and use the odds finder tool we have up there. You can see this really nice chart that we've got for you guys where we lay out all the different sports books that are giving us odds and bets in this NBA postseason. So you can compare those odds, make sure you're getting the best juice on all your bets. I will say the last time we talked about this game, I was talking about it solo without Nate at all as he was still on vacation. Did pretty well in that game, called a number of those props as I was putting props and best bets into one video. The Nuggets barely don't cover the 5.5, which interestingly is what we have once again for this year, this game 3. Just an inverse where the Nuggets now the away team will be plus 5.5 in this one. Total at about 222 after seeing a pretty low scoring game there in game 2 for these two teams. So I'll let Nate toss to Nate for his first best bet of the night.
Yeah, with the Lakers going back home, I'm definitely thinking under once again. I mean, they're 4-2 to the under in these playoffs at home, obviously 6-0, but some of the defensive numbers are just staggering. The ones that went over are definitely the outliers in that case. I mean, we're talking about a 118 defensive rating when they're on the road versus 98 at home. Anthony Davis individually, 88 defensive rating at home versus 110 on the road, which is still pretty good, but of course 88 is incredible. In the clutch, also just like 89 defensive rating at home in the clutch in this postseason. So as the going gets tougher, the Lakers defense will step up more. We've talked about it, you know, how they're starting to approach more of that bubble mentality in 2020 where they were clearly winning games on defense, and that's what Davis brings to the table first and foremost. And look, Denver, we know the offense dips on the road. I mean, they were 14th in offensive rating on the road this season versus top 3 at home. The pace also dipped a little bit. And then you look in these playoffs, they're at only a 97.5 pace on the road in these playoffs. They're 2-3. Some of the defensive numbers are, you know, staggeringly bad, which would make you think over, but I'm really just looking at that as Devin Booker and Kevin Durant having out-of-body experiences in 2 of the 3 games there in Phoenix that were just utterly ridiculous. And I don't think you can say that Denver's defense is not going to be up to the task in some way here. Their offense, though, going back to that, I mean, they only get 21 free throw attempts. They only average 10 threes at 35% on the road. And they're actually scoring 10% more of their points in the paint on the road versus at home. 51% of their points coming in the paint, which is just not going to be as effective against the Lakers and Anthony Davis, who, as I mentioned, is just an utter defensive juggernaut at home. So that is why we're thinking under. Again, the number 223, I guess I didn't mention that off top, but that's the number as I record this here on Friday night. Looking at 223. Putting a full unit on that, and then also looking at half a unit on just the Lakers money line with that under to just jump the odds there, plus 185. I mean, Lakers had a very good chance to win both of those first 2 games. As I mentioned, 6-0 at home, undefeated. But the Nuggets, I mean, that had a natural kind of letdown in these last 2 series as they hit the road, and were not really quite the same team. Also, I mean, again, going back to the under, like both teams had tired legs in that game. I know Denver's supposed to be used to playing at altitude, but in game 2, it looked like they had nothing there down the stretch until Jamal Murray just went off. And then they were just suddenly hitting very tough shots, and that pretty much carried them through. But that game was going to go way under. Game 1 went over just like the Warriors and Lakers game 1 because old dudes with rest. And now the Lakers on an every other day schedule, not going to have that rest, not going to have as good of an offense, but their defense, I think, again, can carry them. They have they're throwing in more Rui Hachimura, more defense, therefore, and going to, I think, keep this game low scoring enough for the 223 to hit.
So, interestingly enough, as we record these separately in somewhat of a battle style video, I am actually going the other way from what Nate is thinking here with some of the unders. I'm not necessarily touching the spread or the money line per se. I already have the Nuggets to win this series in a futures bet, and knew it wasn't going to get any better for them than the minus 155 I was able to take them at. So instead, I'm actually going the other way on the total, though, and I am just hitting over 222 in this one, which you can get 222 on FanDuel right now, 222 and a half on DraftKings and most other books. So 222, the best number there from FanDuel. And the only thing that's keeping me feeling even better than I already feel about this game is the fact that, some of the stuff that Nate actually brought up there, where he was talking about the defensive rating at home for the Lakers. They are very, very good at home in these playoffs with that 98 defensive rating, giving up just under 100 points per game as well. So you worry about that, but this is Denver. And at this point, this is for sure the best offense remaining in the league. You can make the argument that though Sacramento had the best offensive rating, one of the best in the history of the NBA, the Nuggets were, a more efficient team, a more reliable offensive team, and the best in the NBA. That's my opinion anyway. And they're not necessarily, they're better than the Warriors offense even, which we saw stall out at on the road against this Lakers team for the most part. And obviously the same case was made for Memphis, who struggled really in the entire series, but definitely on the road against LA as well, where they did not win. So that's a different story than this Nuggets team, which is putting up 118 points per game on the road in the playoffs, actually 3 more than they're putting up at home, the 115 that they're putting up at home. And at home, their games are averaging 115 to 103, so about 218 points versus on the road where they're averaging about 233 as they're giving up 115 points per game on the road versus that really good defense that's only giving up 103 at home. So I think the Lakers are going to be able to score a lot more at home, where they're also scoring more points per game in the playoffs to the tune of 118 at home versus 109 on the road. And so they're just, there's most teams, in fact, the only teams that are scoring more points on the road in the playoffs than at home is Denver. And the other two teams that did it are out in the first round, the Clippers and the Timberwolves. Everybody else is scoring more points. I'm sorry, I should put the Heat in there as well, not the Timberwolves. The Heat are still alive, and they're scoring more on the road than they are at home right now, but just barely. And so the point is most teams are not. The Nuggets are one of those teams that are, and so I find us in a good situation to take over 222 if they're going to get 115 to 118 points, which I've got to expect. I don't think that this Lakers defense has shown that they can stop that. Kudos to Rui for getting minutes and playing well on offense, but his defense was fine on Joker. I guess it's not going to be something that stops it. So I continue to feel good about points in this one. It was a situation in game 2, with that little bit of that under where big time under was only 211 points scored. But we saw, the altitude get to people, and it was hilarious to see graphics come up on different shows the next day talking about, is altitude a real thing? Did that really impact the Lakers in game 2? It's yeah, altitude is a scientific fact that we can look at how it impacts the human body and its ability to break down oxygen. So both teams were a little bit more tired, which has been the case in game 2 in Denver all playoffs long. Then you come back to game 3s, and they're going to places like back to Phoenix, now back to LA, both much lower altitudes, much closer to sea level, a lot easier to breathe and play up and down basketball. And in the last 2 games, one was Minnesota and one was in Phoenix in terms of the game 3s that Denver has played in this series. And we're talking about 117 points per game with those games for Denver, and both those games averaging 233 points per game, played at 101.5 pace. So you see teams able to really pick up that pace a bit more than they were, in the second game with that altitude that they're playing in Denver. There was 102 pace played in game 2, just not the best legs available to really make shots, as both teams shot horribly from the field after incredibly good numbers in game 1. So I expect things to go back to a little bit closer to game 1 in terms of the efficiencies and the pace to remain about 101.5, 102, definitely. So I think over 222 in this game is a really solid bet.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking under, and in that sense, I'm thinking Lakers to win a pretty close game. I don't think the Nuggets are just going to fade away down the stretch. I mean, I look at those 2 games in Phoenix, even when Devin Booker and Kevin Durant were having out-of-body experiences, the Nuggets found a way to stick around. I mean, Jokic, Murray, their two-man game, just so unstoppable. So we're looking at losses of 5 and 7 points in Phoenix and a loss of 6 points in Minnesota when Anthony Edwards had that out-of-body experience to extend that series. So we haven't seen the Nuggets lose by double digits in the postseason on the road here. I mean, we have seen them thrash the Suns to close that one out and beat the Wolves, but I don't think the Lakers are going down meekly by any point. And in fact, I think they're going to win this game. So you look at their on the road this postseason, the Nuggets are plus 2.5 net rating. It's obviously very close. 118 offense, 116 defense, more or less. I talked about with the first pick how their pace slows down. They go down to 96 pace in the fourth quarter on the road, and just not that good in the clutch in those situations. 1-3 record in these clutch games on the road with a 129 defensive rating versus an 89 defensive rating at home this postseason. So that is why I think the Lakers will be able to pull away a little bit. I know Josh likes taking that fourth quarter under, and it's probably a good spot for him to look at this as well. I'll get to see what his picks will be, but yeah, I mean, the Lakers at home in the clutch, they have a 62 defensive rating in the very limited sample size. 110 offensive rating, not exactly blowing doors off, but it's again, it fits with my first pick to say like Lakers win under in a relatively close game, at least a single digit game. So you bet the win margin 1 to 5 points plus 400 or 6 to 10 points plus 410. Again, you put those two together, that's giving you better odds than the 1 to 10 win margin, which is the exact same bet. It's just a matter of how, you can slightly juke the units you put on each of those ones. For my money, I'd probably think 6 to 10 is a little more likely. That's just where we see games wind up with the foul game, etc. But basically, yeah, to round out my two picks, I think the Lakers are going to win a low-scoring, close game. We'll see if that all comes true. But I think, yeah, either way, that's the right game theory to play this game 3.
All right, I'm looking at my final pick here, and I'm going with a same-game parlay with a few guys in this game, and I'm looking at Joker, D'Lo, and Anthony Davis. Let's talk Jokic to go 25 points or over, D'Lo to get 10-plus points, and AD to get 20-plus points. You put all three of those together, and it's plus 140 on DraftKings. I'm talking about a half a unit on that one. And if you are about to watch, hopefully either have watched or are going to watch the player props video, I do talk about D'Lo and Anthony Davis in that video as well. And so just kind of starting with some of their numbers, like for me, it's time to go back to D'Lo as his number has finally gotten low enough, mostly on the threes. But definitely the points as well. You can still get it for 12.5 on FanDuel right now at minus 130. So, if you want to get the same game parlay on there with D'Lo and get a few more points as well, you might be able to juice that up. But as far as what they're offering here on DK, I like just having him get 10 points in this game. He scores 18 points per game on the road, at home in these playoffs versus 12 on the road. Shoots much better, shoots more, and just plays a lot better. He's just your sort of classic role player, playing much better at home, especially in big situations like the playoffs. So I'm feeling good about him. Anthony, every other Davis, no disrespect, but I'm bringing it up because it is time after an 18-point output in game 2 for us to go back to him to get over 25 in this game. But I'm just using 20 points for him in this one, just as some, to sort of put some numbers behind the point I'm making there. He scored less than 20 points 5 times before this last time where he did it now his 6th time in game 2 of this series, but prior to that in this playoffs 5 times he did it where he scored less than 20. The games after that game where he scored less than 20, he's averaging, there's 5 of those games obviously, averaging 31.4 points per game in 38.5 minutes in those games, has a 28.5% usage rate, gets to the free throw line 9 times a game. That's including one game where he got 30 plus points with just 3 free throw attempts as he was just cooking against the Timberwolves. So not the Timberwolves, the Grizzlies, sorry. But yeah, like AD to come back, 20 points isn't too much to ask for after an abysmal game 2 where he just didn't do much on offense. He still had 18 points. I'm just looking for him to get 2 more to finish out this prop. And now over to Joker, where 25 plus for him, like his prop is at 28.5, and you get pretty good juice on that. I wouldn't be mad at anybody who wanted to take Joker to get 30 in this game or more. In his 5 games on the road in these playoffs, 35.5 points a game. He's gone over 30 or more anyway in 4 of those 5, and he got 20 in one of those. So, and it was against the Timberwolves game 3. Who knows how hard he was really trying at any point in that series, even when he scored 40 in that series. So, the fact that they're on the road is what I'm looking at with Joker, and that he really turns on the scoring at this point to, really carry the team, which he knows he needs to do that. When you look at some of the numbers for these role players, once again, super classic role players for the Nuggets, playing super well at home in these playoffs, not nearly as well on the road, specifically in the scoring department. And that even goes for Jamal Murray, who's scoring almost 5 points fewer on the road right now in these playoffs than he is at home. Aaron Gordon, 3 fewer per game on the road. Bruce Brown, 4 fewer per game on the road. KCP, 1.5 fewer points per game. And the only other player besides Jokic to have more points on the road than at home is Michael Porter Jr., which congratulations to MPJ for playing well on the road so far. Scored about 16.5 points per game on the road versus 13.5 at home. So, maybe you expect him to come out and for him to get 16 points in this game is actually pretty good money on DraftKings as well, and a few other books right around even money for MPJ to get 16. But I'm just putting Joker in this prop for 25. I think he's probably good for 30, but I can still get plus 140 on my money for this one. So I'm feeling pretty good about this little same game parlay where I lowered all these guys' props to places that I feel really comfortable about in game 3. So that is all the time that we have for you in this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Check out the playa props we have up for you as well for Saturday. And until we see you next, which will be Sunday, happy betting.